So last video we went through the straddle handstand. Today I'm going to take you through the tuck. You normally see two variations of the tuck handstand. You'll see the hollow back position, so used a lot in the, especially if someone has like a yoga background, they tend to have this big arch through the back, or someone who's just very flexible through the thoracic and through the hips. And then there's someone like myself who's tight through the hips and tight through the thoracic. So I struggle to sit in the bottom of a resting squat, especially with my legs close together. And that's seen in the tuck handstand. So two real variations. Now, obviously, if you're very tight, you can't do the deep one. But if you are deep, you can do both variations, and there's different applications for both. So you want to think about what you want to use it for. So today I'm just going to go through some variations on how you can train it, both if you're freestanding and if you're still working against the wall. So let's first cover the wall variations. If you've got a freestanding handstand, I still recommend that you do these wall drills because they'll probably put you in some more challenging positions, especially in terms of mobility and shoulder position. So let's start with chest to wall handstand. So don't go too close to the wall to start with this one, and we're just going to slide the shins a little bit down the wall and then back up again, and slowly just explore the position. Ideally try and keep the legs squeezed together, so at the shins and at the knees and at the feet, try and keep the legs squeezed together. Just go down a little bit and come back up. Now the goal with this, either video or get someone to check as you're doing it, is to keep the shoulders on top of the hands. If you can get down to 90 degrees and you're going past 90 degrees, then move your hands a little bit closer to the wall and slowly just explore that depth and the distance away from the wall, and find a position where you can slide up and down to where you think your range is in terms of your flexibility, and then just do reps in that position, trying to keep the shoulders on top of the hips, and you'll see, the shoulders on top of the hands, and you'll see what happens to the hips. They'll go backwards relative to like the length of your femur and how the distance you are away from the wall. Now we can do a hold here, and we can do reps of going up and down. Most people will just, to start with, will just need to explore the position and see what they can do. Then we can flip it around and go back to wall. So this variation is very similar, where again, just explore the position first, but now instead of your shins sliding up and down the wall, initially it'll be your feet, but then your butt will touch the wall. So I would start this one actually going closer to the wall with the hands, and then get the butt to touch nice and early, and then slide back up again. So you're just exploring the down and back up, and again trying to keep the legs squeezed together, and definitely keep the shoulders on top of the hands. This is a big one, especially if you're tight in the position, that your shoulders are going to want to plunge forwards. Mine definitely do when I try and do it. So try and keep those shoulders on top. So have someone watch your video and watch every repetition and make sure that the shoulders are staying there. And again, explore that distance away from the wall. So we can do slides up and down, and we can do a hold in that position. Now we can work away from the wall. So if you're freestanding handstand already, so same deal. So just go into that straight freestanding handstand, keep the legs squeezed together, and just explore how deep you can go. Now more so on the freestanding handstand, you'll see people will mess up the timing. So the timing of when they close the knees and when they close the hips. Some people will overdo the knees. That's more common than people overdoing the hips, but I've seen it before. So they'll go very piked if they get that wrong, and just close the hip and keep the knees straighter, or they'll overbend the knees and don't close the hips at all. You could choose to go a little bit down, so like into a mini tuck position. This is definitely a position that I learned from Yoval and I think is really useful. So it's a real mini tuck. So you just bend the hips very slightly and just bend the knees very slightly. And then come back out of that. And then you could just continue to go a little bit deeper, come back out, a little bit deeper, come back out. Once you know your depth, you could just hit repetitions here. So here I'm hitting, I don't know, 15, 16 reps. And trying to keep the shoulders in exactly the same position on top of the hands the whole time, and then going as deep as I can. So obviously the bigger your range, ideally you should be able to go all the way down to your deepest position and back out again, which that range or that repetition is going to be a lot more time under tension than someone who's tight. It's going to be a smaller position, but it's going to, for them, it's going to be more about strength in terms of the traps, keeping the shoulders on top of the hands. We can then do a head-in position. So most people with a head-in position, if you've done back bridging or anything like that, you'll realize that the head-in position is actually a little bit easier flexibility-wise. But if you don't have a head-in handstand, it's going to be harder to hold the balance. So you can either go into the tuck and then go into your head-in position, or you could have a head-in position first, or even looking up towards the toes, and then pulling it into your tuck, hold, and then back out again. And you can do all the variations of that. You can move the head in and out while you're repping up and down. So big takeaways for the tuck is to try and keep the legs squeezed together. Definitely keep the shoulders on top of the hands, and also have a look at the different variations you'll see people doing the tuck in. So then in terms of training it, it's down to where you are in terms of your freestanding handstand, your mobility. So if you're tight in the position like I am, you definitely want to be hitting the mobility separate to the handstand itself. So you can spend time and do these reps, but you're going to be limited by your range of motion, and your range of motion is going to not improve too much in the handstand itself. I would be hitting mobility exercises for the hips and mobility exercises for the shoulder and thoracic separately to the handstand, and then combining it and just testing it, and basically use the handstand as a bit of an assessment and conditioning for what you achieve mobility wise away from the handstand. Now, if you're very flexible, you have the other problem. Now, in terms of that, what I mean is that you can go very deep, you can arch the back, but a lot of the time people who are very flexible in the position struggle to open back up to the straight handstand. So I would be doing more work if you're flexible on open and closing the position and getting back to your home straight position instead of just hanging in that deep tuck position, because that's where you're going to find it easier to hang out. So do repetitions of open and closing if you're flexible. I'll be working all of those things. I'll be working towards your tuck press if you don't have that. I'll be working your tuck entries, so jumping through tuck into handstand, and I would be working on the tuck itself. So all three of those. So same deal, if you've got any questions, stick them in the comments below. Subscribe and thumbs up would be appreciated. Speak to you next time.